When you look at an orchestra, what do you see? A perfect balance of sound or a setup where one instrument always wins? Let's take a closer look at the math of the string section and ask, is the modern orchestra secretly rigged? In classic Western music, we have the idea of four-part harmony, often represented by soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, even if we're not talking about singers and instruments instead. Well, the orchestra string section is really just an expansion of the string quartet. First violin as soprano, second violin as alto, viola as tenor, and cello as bass. Now, in theory, this should balance beautifully, but here's the problem. Violins naturally project more than cellos, for example. Why? They have a brighter sound, they have higher frequencies, and often they're just plain louder than violas, cellos, and basses. If that's already true in a quartet, what happens when we multiply that by 20? Let's take a look at the standard string section in a modern orchestra. Although it can differ, usually we have something like 16 first violins, 16 second violins. That's 32 violins in total against maybe 12 violas, 10 cellos, and perhaps 8 double basses. Well, that's nearly double the amount of violins versus cellos and basses. So now you can see what the problem is. What do you think might happen when a melody shifts from the violins to the lower voices? That's right. Often there is a big imbalance. Now, composers, starting especially in the Romantic period, know about this imbalance. I say the Romantic period because in Mozart and Beethoven's time, the orchestra was simply much smaller, and this imbalance wasn't quite as obvious. So starting from the Romantic period, many composers often would double the cellos with violas, or perhaps with the basses when they had an important line. Composers sometimes cut down the number of players in the violin section, or even cut out a whole section. Conductors can also step in, simply asking the higher voices to play softer. But if those solutions aren't applied, something strange happens. The melody handed to the violas or cellos gets buried. As a cellist, I've had to push harder than feels natural just to be heard. But should the lower voices really have to fight that hard to be noticed? Here's a good example of how a Romantic period composer handled this problem with the modern orchestra. This is Brahms Symphony No. 3, third movement, and I'm just showing the string section. As you can see, the melody starts here with the cello. Now you'll also notice that it's marked mezza voce, which is not exactly clear. Maybe that means mezzo forte. It also says to play it espressivo, and you want the melody to sing out. Both the violin 1 section and the violin 2 section are marked pianissimo. Whenever I've played this piece, I've never found it difficult for the cello section to bring the melody out, simply because of the way Brahms addressed the problem. And I know I might get flamed for this, but hear me out. Imagine doubling the number of cellos or giving the violas equal strength to the violins. The whole balance of the orchestra, at least the string section, would shift. Darker, richer, maybe even more faithful to that quartet ideal. But since that's impractical, we rely on artistry. We rely on composers writing with balance in mind, conductors adjusting the dynamics, and 32 violinists playing with a little bit of restraint. So, is the modern orchestra balanced by design or just by careful illusion? This is something that won't be solved by me, and certainly not in one YouTube video. But I want to ask you, the next time you hear a melody passed from violins to violas or cellos, listen carefully. Does it shine through, or does it vanish under the violin's shimmer? And now that you know this imbalance, will you ever hear an orchestra the same way again? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.